That's the backstory.
Right. Are we live yet? Or
Yeah,
this is already okay.
It's
yeah.
live. We're just chilled, and then we'll make it happen. Like we'll bleed in the content as we'll bring in the audio as the content makes sense.
All good.
Yeah.
All good. So regarding Rebel.Online, Rebel.Online is my agency. Mm-hmm. So mostly an e-commerce agency that I started 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. It started with I was working at a SaaS company for financial SaaS, which is not that exciting. But the good thing about that company was like very focused on self-development and really bettering yourself as a human. Mm-hmm. In order to provide better results or not, that's debatable. But the good thing is they created that environment. And I was heavily focused on self-development and just optimizing every facet of my life. At the time, what I was doing was I was going up to people who've had a track record that I would like to have, and I was just inviting them for lunch or coffee or something like that. And I ended up inviting this guy who was on Shark Tank in Portugal. And
who was it?
Tim Vieira.
Oh yeah, he's been on the show.
Yeah? Awesome. Yeah. So awesome. Tim's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
If it weren't for Tim, I probably wouldn't have started the agency as early as I did. Tim had lunch with me. He really believed in me. He saw like potential. He's like, hey, do you want to, I'll bring you clients and, I'll help you start your agency. And that's how I got started.
Yeah. He's incredible. He's an incredible builder like that. Like he really stitches the things together really well. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I think probably the best thing I learned about Tim or from Tim is surround yourself like with the best people. Not necessarily, it's like what Steve Jobs did as well, right? It's I don't try to learn the things that experts know. Is I'll hire the experts so they know the things for me. And Tim does that very, very well.
Yeah.
Started the agency. At the start, it was very small. Some clients I was charging €70 per month to manage their paid media. But effectively was the start of a very big journey. For the first 2 years, we kind of just played around with the Portuguese market, very slow and small scale operations. And then something changed. I had this guy I followed on LinkedIn. And he, out of the blue, he invited me to a marketing event that he was hosting in LA. And I'm like, why not?
Yeah. Who was it?
Thomas Ma.
Okay.
This guy had like one of the biggest TikTok agencies back when TikTok was a new thing, right? Very new. And I figured, why not? I mean, what's stopping me? I think I was 20, maybe like 23 years old at the time. It's like, why not go to LA to a marketing event? So I did. I met one of my best friends there and I started working with him, and that got us access to international clients, which kind of changed the game. We were able to, charge higher fees, be exposed to a completely different markets and a completely different reality than Portugal. I think one of the things that, as far as entrepreneurship goes in Portugal, is kind of like we have our cards stacked against us because of the culture.
Because of culture?
Yeah.
Like what's an example?
There's a lot of like tall poppy syndrome. Mm-hmm. You know what it is?
Yeah. So it's like if you stick your head up, you're the one that gets snipped.
Exactly. Right. And a bit of the crab bucket example as well.
Yes, you try to climb out and someone keeps pulling you back down.
Exactly. I think it's gotten a lot better, but it's not normal to deviate from the traditional path. More so in Portugal. I remember a friend of mine, I was talking to him about this. He's American. And when I was in school, I told my English teacher, I want to be a professional snowboarder. And my English teacher turned to me and she said, who do you think you are? Like you don't have the capabilities. We don't have snow in Portugal. And my American friend, I told him about this, and he's like, you know what? In America, in the States, if someone said that, if I told that to my teacher, they said, you go, like you do everything you can and you try to go for it.
Yeah.
It's just like, imagine as a kid, that sort of messaging, what are you going to carry out through your entire life? It's like, oh, I shared this dream with someone and don't believe I can do it, versus I share my dream with someone and believe that I can do it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that cultural thing going on.
Actually, I had something similar at school. I used to really love art, and we had an art teacher, Mr. Andrews, and I don't think he'll ever listen to this, but what a dick. And I remember specifically him asking me, what do you want to be one day? And it just at the time, I was like, I'd really like to be, an aerospace engineer. And listen, I didn't have the marks, and I didn't have the capacity to do it then. But in my mind, it was something that I wanted to be. I was a 14-year-old kid, and that just sounded like amazing. And he just laughed at me in the same sort of vein as like, who do you think you are? Like, oh, really? And then it became like the running joke for him every time I walked in the class to bring it up. Hey, aerospace engineer, it was like, and I was like, okay, you brush it off. But, I stopped taking art the next year, which was something that I really enjoyed. And it just, first of all, broke the relationship with him, but it also, it died. And to be honest, like if I think about it today, like that would have been terrible for me in terms of work. But it was just the same thing as like when you are young and impressionable and you're trying to build an identity for yourself, it's so important that the people who are giving you feedback are saying, well, how are you going to solve that problem? Or, what's your plan to do that? And like really creates like some awareness in you that you can do it if you do the right work for it. So it can be quite damaging, teachers.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's pretty fucked up. Pardon my French. Like that's fucked up for a teacher. Honestly.
Yeah, no, we I went to a traditional all boys school, and there was just some stuff there that you just like that they got away with in the culture of like bad banter.
Yeah.
But you don't think about it from a development perspective, and I think that on some level, to defend him, on some level, it was just like the culture was banter. Like, stick it to them type thing. But I do remember it very clearly to this day that became like a running joke in the art class. Anyway, so I didn't mean to break your train of thought. Carry on.
Not at all. I mean, this stuff is important.
Yeah.
But back to the story of Rebel. So I went to LA, gained access to the international market. A couple of years in, we only started working with international clients because, again, the market in Portugal is very small. And most Portuguese companies, either they're A, very small and they don't have really the cash to invest, or B, they're bigger, but they have preference for suppliers. At the time, we're only doing Facebook ads. And to really capture a really big client in Portugal, number one, you need to kind of go through a little bit of bureaucracy. And number two, you really needed to provide a full service because they don't want to have multiple agencies. So effectively, we just focused on the international market. I started traveling way more. So 6 years out of the agency, I probably spent around 4 years of the agency just traveling around the world, Asia, United States, that sort of thing. That like also opened my horizons, and I was already pretty attached to English as a culture, mostly like American, because I grew up playing video games with foreigners and watched a lot of movies and listened to a lot of Frank Sinatra and all that. So effectively, I just became like more international through that process of traveling, which also I kept expanding my network through Rebel. Effectively, Rebel, even though it wasn't my $1 million ticket, it was the start of a very big journey. That effectively led me to where I am.
So I mean, when you say it's not your $1 million ticket, like what is it? Is it what is it for you that if it's not that?
Yeah, so I think I could tie this in with some of the stuff that I told you about or in our last conversation. I started Rebel out of what I know today being fear, because I grew up with financial uncertainty. My dad is a very successful entrepreneur, and I think it was in the 2003 economic crisis, if I'm not mistaken. He lost pretty much about everything, and my parents got divorced at the same time. So as a kid, I was facing a lot of uncertainty. It's kind of my belief nowadays that you end up becoming who you wanted to have in your life as a kid, right? So if I lacked financial certainty, I want to become an adult that can provide that financial certainty to, quote unquote, the inner child in me. Not necessarily that I have a little kid residing in me, but
I know exactly what you mean. I think it's like pretty standard now that we're openly talking about those inner children that have been damaged in some way.
Exactly. So you want to become the person that you didn't have back then. So I did not know what I wanted to do when I went to university. Honestly, I was a pretty bad student. I really didn't care. I just want to play video games. Ironically, video games led me to entrepreneurship
Mm-hmm.
because I saw in video games, I wanted my character to be the best character possible. So at one point I thought, what if I do this with my life? Like, how can I apply this concept to my life? And that's how I found out self-development. And at the time, Tony Robbins was the big thing. And I started seeing Shark Tank, and I'm starting to get this picture of, entrepreneurship. Being an entrepreneur is like the apex, right? The apex predator of the professional world. Now I have different ideas about that.
Yeah, we definitely got to talk about that. I have very different ideas now too.
Yeah. So we could touch on that as well. But effectively, like that image of seeing these successful people on Shark Tank and getting these large amounts of money, and I'm like, that's it. I need to start a business. Gary Vee was like popping off at the time. He was just starting his career, right? And I'm like, all right, this is the way. This is something that I need to do. But if it weren't for Tim, I probably wouldn't have had the balls to start it as early as I did.
Yeah, just someone backing you, you know?
Yeah. It's someone who's had so much success.
Yeah.
I really thought, like, with this guy on my team, I can't fail. And because later in my life, I discovered that I actually have a deep fear of failure because it's tied to my dad. I saw my dad effectively fail, and that destroyed his life for around 10 to 15 years. So failure for me is like, if you fall, it'd be a nasty fall. So I was so afraid to fail. I had to find someone who believed in me enough that I can be like, all right, I'm safe now. I can go move forward. So if I have one big thing to thank Tim, it's probably that he believed in me when I didn't, you know? So that's how I got started as an entrepreneur. And it wasn't $1 million ticket because, it gave me the financials to live a very cool lifestyle, traveling, not really caring too much about my expenses. As most kids and millennials and maybe even more Gen Zers, it's like, oh, when I'm 30, I'm going to be a millionaire. That didn't happen. But I think something even better happened. The journey of growing the agency led me to a place where I was able to find myself in more ways than one, but most specifically spiritually. And that's kind of like my big thing right now. And the message that I want to kind of spread. Yeah, I mean, that's where it led me.
So I just off of your story, and thanks for sharing that, and also sort of digging into some of maybe like the more tender things, but, sort of going back on a few things. The first one that you kind of referenced in terms of yourself as being more international, and, there was some reference to your sort of the, Portugal's culture kind of not wanting the tall poppy syndrome or, the crab in the bucket to kind of pull you back. But I'm not sure that that's a Portugal specific thing, but I think that could be a people specific thing who don't have exposure to different context.
Yeah.
And I've definitely experienced that in South Africa, but I've experienced it everywhere. Like that you create this world around yourself that says, this is it, this is how we do things, and this is kind of the path you must follow. And so anything foreign to that becomes like an immediate attack vector. Like, I don't want you to do that because I can't do that, or I don't think that that's possible because I could never see myself doing that. Mm-hmm. Did you always feel that you were slightly different? You said you're playing video games, like you had this attachment to other people that you kind of like, you had like this competitive streak in you that wants to be the best. Was it something that Tim validated that you are different, that went, or, like that's what I mean, like you said that he believed in you, but maybe just validated the belief in yourself that you are different?
Yeah. 100%. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like someone just coming along and saying, what you're doing is okay. What you're doing is all right. You can take this path. Versus, just before university, I was trying to pick a major, right? And I said, I think I'm going to go with journalism. That sounds cool. Writing about stuff, and I always liked writing. I like
the vision of being a war journalist and in the trenches, and
like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and then,
Exactly.
But it just sounded very appealing and very sexy, and I could have done stuff with it for sure. Content's a big business nowadays, probably the biggest one, right?
Yeah, and data, yeah,
and data, yeah. But I ended up not going because my grandpa told me there's no money in journalism. I'm like, all right, scratch that.
Yeah.
So I thought, what else would be cool? Maybe doing ads for TV. That sounds cool. Just sitting around at a table and thinking about like polar bears for Coca-Cola and something like that, you know?
Yeah.
So I went for marketing and advertising. But I still never knew what I wanted to do at the end of the day. I just I went to take a bachelor's and a master's because it was my grandparents' dream. But I knew that effectively I wanted to do things differently. You know, in my past, I've considered being a pro gamer. I've considered being a Twitch streamer. I've considered, a lot of these things that are off the beaten path. But effectively, I never had anyone in my life that could come and say like, number one, I've been there. I know you could go there. And number two, it's okay, move forward.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I want to note is that, like my grandpa saying, "There's no money in journalism." That comes out of love.
Yeah, it's not trying to break you down.
Yeah.
It's just saying, "Hey, I want you to be better than I was," and I don't think that that's a good road to walk. But to add to that, I think it's difficult because when your kids are stepping up with interests, and you raise it, off the beaten path, is actually the new path.
Yeah, 100%.
The Twitch stream is actually the new path. And so you have to be very careful about killing things that you don't understand. So journalism might have had a huge happiness factor and given you a lot in terms of freedom of time or the things that you really wanted for yourself in your life. And that's money can't be the only thing. You just have to make them aware of, that's cool, there's no money in that. But there's these things. So what are the positives? Why journalism? Like what are the positives, and do they outweigh the stability, the financial stability that you would get? And I think that's kind of my rule that I'm currently building for my kids, is saying, I'm not going to say no to anything as long as you're the best at it. Right? Cool. You want to be a journalist? Like, cool. As long as you're going to apply yourself to that in a way that's going to make you the best at it. You're not going to do it as a cop out from being the best at something else.
Yeah. Commit yourself to it.
Yeah, commit yourself to it, and that's time in, and it's going to be something that until you're in your 40s, you want to get up and smash that thing, and you want to differentiate yourself in it. Because I find that that's been, like, when I look around my peer group, is that people who are doing really well really invested time into these things, and they were not watching the clock and clocking in and clocking out. They were like really passionate about it. And they never got tired doing the work. They were like really energized by doing the work. And then they get to a point where like, okay, I need someone else to do this work now, but that's it. And I'd like to help my kids find that path. Is that okay? As long, like twitching. The one thing I'd say about being a Twitch streamer is that like you could end up with a cavity in your head from the headphones.
I've seen that. Yeah, that's a real thing.
But, just be aware, you're going to get a weird shaped head.
It comes with the job.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, being a Twitch streamer is not as great as it sounds. Like you see the donations and you think, I'm playing video games all day or I'm chatting with people all day. Being a Twitch streamer is probably like psychologically probably one of the worst jobs you can have right now. Like you're exposed to the opinion of millions of people online. People have nothing better to do than to insult you or to make you want to try to feel bad. And that's not like, oh no, that's just a pessimistic view of the world. Like, no, that's true. Like there's these people online. If I post anything online, there's a chance that at least one guy is going to try and, pierce through my heart. Right.
Yeah.
So you need to have very tough skin. And then the second thing is, if you take a look at, like, biologically speaking,
it must be really unhealthy for you.
Super unhealthy.
Yeah. So carry on.
But
it's exactly that. It's like you have like this mental attack constantly happening. You're not getting like vitamin D. You're not moving around enough. You are just like in this blue light bath for hours. It's like being in a casino at a slot machine all day, right?
Exactly.
Like you disconnected from the reality, and then you get really sick.
Yeah. It looks very sexy from the outside.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not going to say you couldn't pay me to be a Twitch streamer. I could probably do it for a year.
Yeah.
And like stop doing it. And for a year, if I'm getting money out of it, because doing it for years on end until you have an audience, that's pure dedication. But that's like, you're sacrificing a lot, man. You're sacrificing a lot for that type of stuff. And at the end of the day, is it something that you really want to do forever? Do you want to have kids and like, oh, 5 p.m. I gotta get on stream to make income to, maybe you're a savvy businessman and you launch brands out of your Twitch stream and like kind of like Mr. Beast is doing.
Yeah, but that takes time, right? Like that's like platform is built, then you diversify, right? Like you've got to go deep and long on what you're doing, and then the additional revenue streams come. And I think that's, I mean, even this podcast, like it's going to take time building enough content before you can branch out more content. Like it's work. And it's hard work. And I think that just, on the Twitch example is that I just find that whatever you're doing needs to have some sort of constructive feedback loops in you that are doing good things for you too. And the financial gain is like really great, but doing something for financial gain shouldn't kill your ability to enjoy that financial gain. And so that's an offset. It's not a good model, right? Like if you were getting financial gain and you were really like very happy and your health was in thing, and when you turn 60, you're like, well, I've got my health and I've got my vitality and my family's around me, if those things are important to you. But that's my point is, okay, cool. So you're making a lot of money, but you're dying. Like that's not a good trade-off.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. To actually like tie in Twitch streaming with entrepreneurship, I saw this very recent interview of one of the NVIDIA founders, and they asked
I saw the same interview.
You saw this?
Yes,
like,
yes.
If they would do it again, it's like, fuck no.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I think that I feel that like a lot of really great entrepreneurs that I've founders, like very successful founders, like who've had major exits, are kind of trapped. Like they're trapped in the world that they've created because they build something, they spend a huge amount of time building that thing, and then it becomes hugely dependent on them. And along the way, they cast off a lot of the relationships that were supporting them. And so then they get to the end of that and it's like, oh, now I've created success, the thing's kind of running on its own, but I don't have the relationships that I once had, and I don't have the people that I can really rely on to give me honest feedback. Everyone that's talking to me now is talking to me as a billionaire or talking to me as something else. And there's this like underdeveloped emotional side that now needs work. And so it really is these trade-offs. And I think what I really like about Rebel.Online is that some people, it doesn't have to be the $1 million ticket. Sometimes it could just be the ticket that gives you ownership of your time. And that's hugely what most people want at the end of the day. You want to be really financially sound because you want to own your time. And when you own your time, you own your life, and you can do these other spiritual things. And I think we've spoken about this before, is that, it's like everyone climbs the hill, they get to the top of the hill, and then they're like, oh, this is not it. This is the wrong hill. There's a whole other mountain of self-development now need to start pursuing, and it becomes quite spiritual and becomes quite, philanthropic. And I think that's, you see this big change and this flip around change, but then it's hard for people to believe that they're genuine. Like, whatever, you're a millionaire already. Like, like, of course you're saying that, of course you're saying that you should work on yourself and you should do these other things while everyone else is at the grind. But it is interesting. Like, maybe you can talk a little bit more about like your thoughts on that, getting to the top of the mountain and then, oh, it's not it.
Yeah. I think I'd start with a quote from Jim Carrey. I'm probably going to butcher it now, but he said something along the lines of, I wish everyone could be rich and famous for a day so they could see that it's not the end all, and then they could start living their lives.
Yeah.
After our conversation, because we spoke about this the last time we spoke, I started thinking like, entrepreneurship is probably like one of the best spiritual journeys you can embark on. Because if done successfully, it will put you in a place where you can't escape yourself. You're going to be at the top of the mountain, and you cannot deny the fact that there are other mountains, and this is not where you're looking for, right? And that, that happened with me. I grew Rebel. The focus was financial freedom, financial independence, and honestly, like I kept finding myself, especially in the last 2 years, in a very dark place. And I was like, why is this happening? And it's a tough place to be for entrepreneurs, because from the outside, it looks like your life is awesome. You get to travel. You have money when, a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. It's like, what do you have to complain about? And then you start judging yourself like, yeah, what do I have to complain about? My life's good, you know? And that's kind of the warning sign of you need to go deeper. You need to start looking. You need to start looking into places you haven't looked before, you haven't searched before. And that's why I say that I've seen this pattern. I haven't met one entrepreneur that hasn't had this pattern, right? So usually entrepreneurs start their journey out of, let me try to heal my trauma through entrepreneurship. For me, that was financial independence. For others, it could be something like, even the trauma of purpose can be, solved.
Well, you mean like lack of purpose? Or
lack of purpose, lack of connection. For a lot of men, it's loneliness. So a lot of men nowadays, we try to have financial gain, and we think that through financial gain, people like us, especially women, because our primal brain is trying to crave female attention, and then we find out that it's not. Even if we get that attention, we find out that this is not it, because it's all external. External. And the moment that we need something external to validate our internal self, we'll always be lacking something, right? So effectively, you go through the journey, and this is why you have millionaires that go to philanthropy, millionaires who start retreats, millionaires who advocate for psychedelic therapy nowadays, because they get to a point where it's like, I need to heal myself because this didn't work. But it got you to a place where now you have the resources to actually work on yourself. Because it's very hard to be spiritual when you're like a mom of two and you need to feed your family.
Yeah.
It's very easy to be spiritual when you're like, all right, I don't need to work. I have all this time for myself. So it comes down to almost like the Maslow hierarchy of needs. You can only start going deeper into yourself once you have all those basic needs figured out. And entrepreneurship kind of gives you that. But I think the second mountain, or maybe the third or the fourth, I'm not even sure which mountain I'm on right now.
Yeah.
I think that's a way bigger challenge, because that's a challenge that can effectively, it can break you to a certain degree. Because one of the things that humans don't realize, or most people don't realize, is that we are very, very smart at staying away from things that would hurt us.
Yeah, we are built to avoid discomfort.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of the things that we do in our lives, even our careers, or like being an entrepreneur and all that, if you don't know yourself to a certain degree, I'm willing to bet that most of it is behavior that's trying to suppress something else.
Yeah.
And the bigger that behavior, the bigger the structure that you built around it, the bigger the fear you're trying to escape from. So effectively, this means that there is something so scary within you that you needed to build this empire to run away from. And I'm not saying like every entrepreneur is like this. I'm just saying, from what I've observed, most people I know, there's a small trauma or something that they're trying to compensate from that they didn't get in childhood or something like that. This is just like basic human psychology, right?
Yeah, well, I think that entrepreneurship is one of those things, or running a business creates quite a lot of noise that sort of kills out anything else. So, and so whether it's entrepreneurship or whether it's just being the life of the party, it's normally some aspect of that I'm creating a persona that kills the noise of the thing that's most bothering me. And I think I can believe that. I think that not everyone has to start the business, but people do it on some sort of level. Some people find it through exercise. Some people find it through something else. Like there is this damage, trauma, fear, that then gets turned into a drive for some people, or for some other people, it just completely destroys them. And so the upside is entrepreneurship, but then that has negative ramifications down the line if it's not managed well either.
Yeah. I would touch on that in the sense of, and this could probably like tick some people off, But I think trauma, if it's well addressed, it could be like probably one of the biggest gifts to your life.
Yes.
Because if you choose to, and a lot of us, we do it this subconsciously, if you choose to tackle the trauma that you have, that will teach you a very big lesson. There's almost like this karmic / spiritual journey that comes with fixing the trauma. Jordan Peterson has this segment where he says, if you have a problem, don't run away from it. Face the problem, solve it. It's your problem to fix. And if you're able to do that, then you're truly able to help other humans because you've been through it. And to be able to give such a gift, to be like, hey, I've actually gone through this and I'm able to push you through this. That's how we create a healthier humanity, healthier society, healthier world, effectively. I don't think trauma, and by the way, I'm speaking out of a privileged position here because my trauma hasn't led me to unaliving myself or something like that.
It's almost like an external trauma, right? Yeah. Like it's bad things have happened indirectly to you.
Yeah.
I think other trauma where it's direct to you and it's caused emotional, like things through abuse, sexual abuse, it's a different trauma. Like it's I think that it's a very long road to eventually call something like that a gift, depending on where you come out on the other side of that. But that's normally so damaging. I don't think I can't speak to it, but
Same.
The trauma that I can definitely relate to is things were tough financially in our home. It was a constant. Money was a constant subject for us. How much we had, how much we paid for things. When we were able to pay for things, we kind of like over celebrated that success. Do you know what I mean? It was a very central point for us. And so my parents were divorced very young. My father lived in the US, so I didn't really see him at all. I think I saw him twice between the ages of 2 and 17. So like I had my own version of this, and so exactly what you're saying. Like I want to build the version of me that I never had. Mm-hmm. It's like how I am as a dad, how I am in business. I'm like, I want to be successful. I don't want to worry about money. I don't want to, I want my kids to have a very present father. So whatever I build needs to have access, give me time to have access to them all the time. So I think I can definitely relate to that trauma. I think trauma, when you digest it and you look what you're able to build from it, it can be a gift, but you do need someone often to help you see the gift of it or to give you that chance. Like the Tim, I had a mentor that kind of backed me, and it was like, okay, he believes in me, then I am different. I can go and make this thing happen. I think that we've got to create platforms for more people like that.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
This was I think, a statistic where most successful human beings, and when I say successful, it's not entrepreneurs, it's like people who are happy, had at least one person that believed in them wholeheartedly when they were a kid.
Yeah.
So, that's the thing. And to speak to sexual abuse and really, really, really dark stuff, I can't speak for that. Like I said, I speak from a privileged standpoint where the hardships that I had are nothing compared to some of the hardships that other people had. However, I've seen people come out the other side. I have friends who turned their sexual abuse and even darker traumas into, these are now amazing coaches and people who are effectively helping out the best way possible because they've been able to help themselves out.
Yeah.
So I've seen it happen. Is it hard? I'm fairly sure it's harder than everything.
And I don't think you ever cured. I don't think you've ever healed. I think that's. Yeah. I think that you just in a better position to maybe digest these things or to sort of work through them. But I don't think you're ever healed.
No, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, so I can't really say scientifically. I do have a belief in myself that I kind of gotten over the last 2 years, thanks to therapy, that there is a journey that we're all in. And even though we didn't choose it, we can choose what that journey brings to us. So despite the hardships, you have the power to choose whether those hardships whether you identify with those hardships, and like, we have a lot of this on our society right now. It's like, because X happened to me, therefore I'm not able to do Y for the rest of my life. Whereas I believe because X happened to me, I have this kind of like still energy from this event that I can transmute it into something that's good for me.
Yeah.
So it's the difference between treating depression with antidepressants and actually finding the root cause and healing yourself through it, right? I've taken antidepressants. The big difference was antidepressants were suppressing versus when I started actual therapy, I found out the root cause. But I can tell you, like, going through that process sucks.
Yeah.
People talk about healing and, oh, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to feel nice. I'm going to pour salt in my bath and all that. And that's, self-care is amazing, but true healing sucks.
Yeah. All growth sucks.
All growth sucks. 100%.
It's like, that's we spoke about this, what is the key things that makes entrepreneurs successful, and, what are the kind of like the attributes that differentiate them, and why do people fail? And there is an exposure to the suck that you have to kind of push through, and you have to be willing to consistently do that little by little every single day. I think that's something that's, no matter what you want to do, if you want to lose weight, if you want to build a business, if you want to make new friends, if you want to move to a new country, there is an element of suck that you're going to have to go through. That's going to take you out of your comfort zone into the suck zone. And then it doesn't suck. And when it doesn't suck, then it's like, that's just, I find that people are constantly on an evolution path, are always then looking for the next suck. Like, okay, well, I've kind of mastered this thing. Now I know what I don't know. Let me go into the next layer of this, right? Like, and it's infinite. No matter what you decide to do, it's infinite. Even with losing weight, there's infinite knowledge to be held around nutrition and exercise and whatever it is. So, yeah, I think that it really is. All growth sucks.
Yeah. What you said reminded me kind of of Jordan Peterson, who's almost like in every speech, he says, life's suffering, man, and you can choose to, the whole thing. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, you can choose to face those challenges, and effectively they'll make you a better human.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that early on in my life, I discovered this through therapy, because of my parents' divorce and my financial hardship on my family. I matured really quickly. So I kind of lacked that fun part of childhood. And then I started thinking, all right, I'm gonna have this fun, as much fun as I can in my 20s and that sort of thing. And fun for me was playing video games. So I effectively wanted to create a lifestyle where I could play video games and not care about the world. But then I realized, oh, wow, this is actually the opposite of a happy life, because when you give into the hedonistic tendencies and you're just like pleasure, 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 that's a very deep, dark hole. Because humans, we're not built to experience pleasure all the time. Quite the opposite. We're built to go through struggle and then experience
more
pleasure.
Famine than feast, right?
Yeah. Because that's effectively a good fuel. But if you take a look at just how society is built nowadays, and I'm not saying like let's go back to primal times, live in a cavern and hunt for a food, but it's comfort everywhere. You can sit at your place, you can order food, you can be at the couch and watch TV all day. And effectively, there's nothing driving you. You lose your drive completely. And then it's very easy to be depressed. Very easy, because you look at your life and you feel like, well, number one, your dopamine levels are going down.
Yeah.
So you're enjoying what you're doing less. And because we're enjoying what you're doing less, it's already highly hedonistic. So it's very stimulating. So now you're going to go down and you can't do the things that would effectively lead you to a better place in life. So you have to almost force yourself through willpower to leave the things that make you feel good, but don't make you feel that good, in order to move to a better place. It's kind of like setting off sail and someone tells you there's an island there, there's an oasis. Go into the desert. I promise you there's an oasis, but you just see sand and you're at the city. City has lights, it's comfort, maybe you have your wife there or something like that. It's nice in the city, it's warm. And it's like travel through the desert and you'll find an oasis. It's a better life, I promise you.
Yeah.
You can't.
It's a weird mindset to create for yourself, because you have to then create the city as the reward or the oasis as the reward, and know that neither of those are permanent. That the desert is the permanent, and that's a tough thing to mentally condition yourself to today. Like to say, I'm gonna now walk in the desert more often than I sit in the city or live in the oasis, and that's like discipline. That's life discipline that you have to start building, to say it's also not a good thing to constantly put yourself in the desert either, right? Like you have to create a reward at the end of these things. So if you have a financial goal, that's good. Don't forget to financially reward yourself as a part of that goal. Like otherwise you just start the next thing and you're going to start conditioning your brain to not believe you.
Yeah.
Like it comes down to like a basic. If you set yourself a 30-minute timer to work like in flow, you say, okay, I'm going to work very focused for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to take a 5-minute break at the end of 30 minutes. And you don't take the 5-minute break because you're in the zone, then into the next 30 minutes, you'll find that you can't focus anymore. And what your brain is saying, like, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
You said we would have a 5-minute break. We didn't have the 5-minute break. So why are we working for 30 minutes? You're just going to work for hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's really also like important psychologically to say, okay, if I create a reward center for myself at the end of something, I need to make sure that I fulfill that reward. And that's an integral part of like really good goal setting, and saying, what will the reward be? Why am I doing this, and what am I going to get out of it? And why is that important for me?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've definitely found that. I found on days like setting my flow timer, working, and I kind of like cheated. I'm doing so well here. Like, let me just crack on. That the next 30 minutes is like complete jut or rubbish, and then I can't work effectively. But if I go 25 minutes with a 5-minute break, and then I get onto Instagram and I do whatever for my 5 minutes, then I go back, I'm super zoned in again. It's like, it's such an important psychological thing.
100%. I agree.
Yeah.
It's very Pavlovian in nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like, and now you're working and your brain is like, oh, hell yeah, let's work because we know what's in the end of the, let's go to the desert.
Yeah.
Because we know we're going to get to the oasis.
Yeah.
Now you're creating that anchor point of like getting back to it all the time.
Yeah.
So
once you know where the oasis is, maybe there's more oases. Like that could be your point. Like it's going to be better than the city, right? Like I think that just on that, sorry to interrupt, but it brings something to mind that you were speaking about, that Jordan Peterson speaks about. Yes, I hope he's like really enjoying how much I'm plugging his show today. No, but he speaks about like that heaven and hell.
Yeah.
Right. And we've spoken about this. I'm not too versed in it, but like the basic concept as I understand is that the hell has to be bad enough to move you to heaven.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of like what you're alluding to in terms of trauma. You had bad trauma. It created an environment that I don't want to be here anymore. This is hell. So I have to go and create heaven. Like that's kind of thing. Like how does that kind of play into your habits today? Or how does it sort of, now that you've kind of built a successful platform, how do you create hell for yourself? Or do you need to?
What a question.
It's deep. Yeah, we got time. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I wish I could sit here and say, you know what, Stephen, here's how I do everything. And here's the habits that I focus on to have an amazing life. And here's everything I do to effectively create heaven on earth. The truth is I don't do the things that I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. Nobody does though.
Yeah, nobody does. But if I tie into the mountain thing, is kind of like you start from hell, and you start climbing the mountain, and you get to Olympus, and that's heaven, and then now you're chilling out with the gods, and like, oh shit, that's cool. Then you start looking down again, you see the other mountains, but the other mountains you need to go through hell again.
Mm.
That's kind of like where I see the path going, because to climb to the other mountain, there's a process of acknowledging that you don't know certain things. And not knowing certain things takes you to uncertainty, which effectively leads us down the mountain back into hell again.
Mm. And what's like the motivation to go back into hell? Like,
because you can't live without knowing the second mountain. If you're the type of person that climbed the first mountain, you won't be able to live with yourself knowing that there's something out there that you haven't seen. And you can choose to live in ignorance for a certain amount of time, but it will get to you, and your body will force you out of it. Whether you get depression or you'll start being really stressed, our body has this really amazing way of signaling, hey man, like we need to change something. Again, I'm going to plug in Jim Carrey again, but he said, sadness is momentary. Sadness happens because of circumstances. Depression is your body saying, fuck you, I don't want to withhold this avatar, this persona that you've created anymore. And I truly believe that you spend enough time in heaven, and you start losing your purpose, because what's there to do in heaven besides just chill all the time?
Well, you go to heaven to start the process of dying, right? Like, yeah. And so you're going to get soft, and you're not living anymore. You're
already going down if you're getting soft.
That's right? It. And I think that the motivation that you can always to start the step into hell is that, well, hell hasn't killed me yet, right? So it's bad, but it won't kill me.
No, the first hell is the worst.
Yeah.
The first hell is like, I can't even see heaven. The second hell is like the anchor point. I'm willing to go through this because I know that there's a better life at the other way. For instance, I can tie into, I'm not a dad. It's one of the things that I want to be. But I'm pretty sure that you build an amazing life for yourself that you can support your kids. You're in heaven now. But then like maybe your kid has problems in school with other kids. And you feel this very protective nature of like, I don't want my kid to go through any hardships, even though that's what's going to build character at some point, right? That's your version of hell. Now you're going into hell because you don't know these things. You don't know how to deal with them. You don't know how he feels, etc. Anytime that we go into the unknown, we're facing a certain version of hell within ourselves, because effectively we have an animalistic nature of, if I don't know something, if there's a dark corner in the room, there might be something there. I'm not sure of it. Until I venture into the dark corner and feel it out, I will not know what's there.
Yeah.
Right? So back to like the habits, etc. I can tell you like the habits that I have to like hook me into heaven, which is working out, seeking self-development, having amazing conversations with amazing individuals. This type of stuff energizes me, gives me like, it's like, hell yeah, there's somewhere, some place I can go there. When I'm in hell, I think, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I want to do next in my life. Right now I'm in that process of like, what do I want to build next? Where do I want to go next? How can I do something not just for the money, but that I see purpose on? That's something noble, right? And that's my current hell. So I can't tell you like, hey, I can say for heaven, if you're in the first hell, identify the problems that you need to fix in your life. Are you getting stressed because you're living paycheck to paycheck? All right, what can you do? I wouldn't say start a business. I would say talk to your employer. Are there other positions that you can make? Like what's it going to take for you to get a promotion? Is there another job you can make? What skills can you learn, etc.? This is all going to pull you out of hell to heaven. Is it you have a better relationship? Great. How can you be a better partner? What skills can you learn in order to become the best partner possible? Maybe you need to face certain truths about your relationship that you're not facing. Is it your physical health? Go to the gym. Heaven is not just one place in all facets of our life.
What's the state? It's not a destination. It's a state of being.
100%.
Sorry. Yeah, but I think that's what you need to do is like, you need to expose yourself to that discomfort or hell consistently to feel alive. And the real hell is like the learning component, is like acknowledging that you're not great. You're not great at work. You're not great in a relationship. There's more to it, right? Like, and so then it's like, okay, in order to be better, these are some skills I have to learn. And then the learning really highlights how you suck.
Yeah.
Right. And that then becomes the thing to overcome, because it becomes very easy to walk away from the learning. because then it's hard. Like I don't know it, and I don't know how to solve this, and now I have to ask other people for help, and asking other people for help is really hard in itself, so there's a lot of elements to say, like, it's easier to just stay where you are, but then you deal with the other stuff of, like, I'm anxious, I don't feel well, I'm depressed, like, etc. So I think that again, like, we have so much comfort around us, like the discipline of pushing ourselves has to be at the front of our brain, and it starts with small steps. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing, like you said. Don't go start a business. My thoughts on that is that actually entrepreneurship isn't for everyone.
No.
And actually the numbers are in favor of the professional. People who find a career and build something consistently over years and are successful at that far outstrip the amount of people who start businesses and are successful at that. So, I think that entrepreneurship has been evangelized. It does, talk about big money, and it does have all of these things. It has some negative trade-offs, and I think it is a harder road in terms of stress. But it has a much poorer track record in terms of success than just being a great professional. And you can be an entrepreneur within a business. Like, you can go and be the person for that specific thing in that industry, and you can build that in the safety of a paycheck. And so I think that, no matter what you decide to do, whichever path you take, you need to take the path and the mindset that I'm constantly going to be developing myself or exposing myself to the suck. And I'm sure, I don't know, what do you do for exercise?
Just weightlifting.
Weightlifting.
I'm looking to pick up a martial art very soon.
Which one?
At first I was going for BJJ, very popular nowadays, but then I decided to go to Muay Thai.
Okay.
The problem, it's not a problem, but the thing with BJJ is, and some people, I'm sure some dude is going to listen to what I'm going to say. It's like, what a pussy. It's like, but the thing with BJJ is it's very easy to get injured. Yeah. So some guy can just pull your arm a bit too far, and then, like, what am I going to do with a bad arm in weightlifting for 4 weeks? So my priority is weightlifting. So therefore I need to pick something that doesn't, penalize it. If I can add one thing to what you just said, just going back to it, entrepreneurship has this thing of survivorship bias.
So what is that?
So it's when you only hear the stories of the survivors.
Yeah.
A plane crashes. 2 people survive out of 100, and the other 98 are not there to tell the story, or how they burned to death, or they faced traumatic injury to the head or something like that. So the only stories that you hear is like this miraculous, person who survived the plane crash.
Yeah, and even the successful ones have had numerous crash and burns on the way to the success that you don't hear about either, right?
But they're alive, and that's like the biggest thing.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So entrepreneurship has that. You always hear the stories of 25-year-old entrepreneur got rich with creating a sauce creating Zomato or something like that to plug in Zomato, something like that. You never hear the story of 50-year-old dad invests everything he has and puts in mortgages, and his SaaS company fails. You never hear that story because people don't want to hear that story. And to a certain degree, it's good that they don't hear that story, because that fuels, like, again, we're going back to the teacher example of you can do it, you can't do it. But when you're like 20 to 30, it's very easy to go onto your entrepreneurship, start a business, because if everything fails, you could just go back to your parents' house. 30 up, and you're like, and I want to have...
Stakes are higher.
Stakes are higher. Yeah. You can't just, like, if you have kids, you have a responsibility towards your kids to provide for. So you can't just like, I'm going to start a business now, I'm going to leave my job and something like that. You can't do that. I'm not, who am I to say you can't do anything? But I hope you don't.
You can do anything, but the consideration around it and the risks around it take more
Stakes
time,
are high,
right? Like you have to enter those things. I think that, like, the example of someone who's been really successful in an industry and then wants to sort of go on their own, there's a lot of weight to them being successful, provided they've got that type of pull, right? Like, but there's risk.
There's risk, yeah.
There's more risk. There's more accountability.
But in that example, there's one thing that's different. So I can't remember when I saw this study. It was a couple of years ago, but it found out that most millionaires are people that worked in a certain company for years and then left to do something on their own. So effectively, it's kind of like you're going to work at a company for 10 years. You're going to hone your craft to the best extent possible. And then maybe you become a consultant for that company. You're able to charge more, and then you have different clients. This is probably like the safest route towards financial independence that I know. Either that or you're really good in sales.
Yeah.
Because entrepreneurship is kind of like a jack in the box. You never know what's going to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one other thing that I wanted to touch on as well, on your last point, you said starting small. It was one of the biggest lessons I had in this last 2 years was swallowing my pride, because I had like these projects that I wanted to make, and I never did them. I procrastinated on them, and I started to kind of punish myself. And on one of my therapy sessions, I realized that I am lacking humility. I am lacking humility to do the smallest task possible because I think I'm too good for it, or at least I thought I was. It's kind of like, let's say that you want to be an influencer or something like that, but you posting on Instagram once a day? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm an entrepreneur. I have teams to do that and all that. I was kind of like in that mind space. It's like, I have a team to do that. I'm not going to do the grunt work.
Yeah. Answer an email straight away.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And then when I realized, it's like, oh, okay. And I switched to no task is too small. No task is, and that kind of switched my mindset of now I can climb the mountain, because I'm no longer looking at the halfway through the mountain saying like, yeah, I don't think I can climb that. I'm looking at first rock, second rock, third rock, fourth rock, and I just keep going. So if you're in hell, do the smallest task available to lead you out of it.
Whatever you can get your first fingernails into is the first grip, right? Like the grips will get bigger, and your capability to reach further will come. But and I think that's something that I see quite a lot of with successful entrepreneurs or people with a bit of track record, is that they start to glorify their busyness. And the reason I is like the small tasks. Like I sent an email to someone to be on the show. Okay, you can't be on the show. You're a very busy person. And I'm cool with that. But the response I got, I was very polite. How are you? We know each other. Would love you to be on the show. I think that your insight's hugely valuable. And I also asked, sort of, how's your new baby? Like, I was like polite, not an overly long mail. Like, I remember that you had a child, that was early days, like last time we spoke, like very short. Hey, how are you? How's the baby? Listen, I've got this podcast. I want you to know. And the response I got back was like, hi, really busy. Let's touch base next year. And I'm like, it was like maybe 5 extra words to just add some padding to that. There's like, hi, I can't be on it now. Thanks for asking. All's well at home. Can we touch base next year? Like the tone of that's completely different, but you're like really busy, touch base next year. Like you're so busy you couldn't write 5 extra things. You were answering the mail anyway, just do it. Like, and I feel that that's like a trap that, you have to just be aware of, is that, kindness, extra time, doing the small things consistently. Those are all like things to consistently work on. Just another like crazy example. I have a lot of experience training. I've owned my own CrossFit gym. I've always exercised. I've always been incredibly active and deeply interested in nutrition, different eating sort of styles or formats, whatever you want to call it. And I've really just been so stuck in terms of my own development, my own progress, my ability to lose weight or to sort of maintain sort of a diet. And it's always been like, I'm too busy, or I don't know, the kids, I'm a dad now. And I was like, and then when I started working with coaches, I would kind of like poo-poo them in like the first like weeks. I was like, what is this program you're giving me? I'm advanced, like, why am I getting this? I'm like, and now I'm just like, shut up. Like, if they tell you to do a simple, basic movement, just that's the movement that you're going to do. And I'm like, really strong. I feel incredible at the moment. And it's just because I'm like, leave your ego there. You are not making it on the way that you want to make it. So obviously you need help. And so when you do get the help, listen to the help or empty your cup, like you're going to them with a full cup and then you're like rejecting what they're giving you, which is a kind of a waste of everybody's time. So if you're going to immerse yourself in that, empty your cup, start small and absorb every step that you need to take along the way. So crazy story. And the reason I brought up what type of training is because it was an example of whatever you decide to do, I'm sure it's not easy, right? Like doing something like Muay Thai is still daunting. Whether you choose jiu-jitsu, and we can talk about the injuries in jiu-jitsu for days, and I've had a few, but it's never stopped me from actually weight training. But I think that Muay Thai is also like someone's going to hit you in the face, or you're going to hit someone else in the face, or you're going to expose yourself to conflict, to war, and that's not an easy path either, right? And so you also develop like a taste for that stress or that suck, and then that becomes like part of your DNA makeup because it's a formula that now works for you. So like over time you've done it and you're like, okay, well they can't kill me and they can't eat me, so I might as well just try it, and I've survived worse than this before. And so you kind of build the confidence for yourself that no matter what is in the dark corner, going to your previous point, no matter what's in there, I have the skills to take it on. And even if it repels me, I know I'll learn from that experience and then I'll go back to the dark corner again and take it on again once I know what it is. So I think that's just like something that you have to consistently build in yourself.
100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Exposing yourself to that sort of danger, I think it's very important.
Yeah.
Let's plug Jordan Peterson one more time here.
Yeah, no problem.
You just read 12 Rules for Life.
Yeah.
There's this example of you're running in the forest and you hear something in the bushes and you think it's a wolf, right? It's a forest at night. You think it's a wolf. It's going to eat. You start running. And if you just had, if you took a quick look back, you'd notice it's a squirrel.
Yeah.
But to take that look back is the scariest thing you'll ever do in your life because you're like, I am putting myself in danger right now. Yeah. I am facing the fear, and it might be a wolf, and at that point you can actually run. But it also might just be a squirrel. And I think what I like about martial art, there was this guy on YouTube. It's very like manly coach type of thing, and he said, by 30 years old, you should do X amount of things. And one of the things he said is, you should be able to enter in a room, look around, and say, if I were in a fight, I could probably hold my own.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're going to become this very aggressive guy who's going to, look for a fight. But there is a certain sense of security that is in your body when you know that if shit goes down, I'm not at risk of death or I'm not at risk of injury. Plus, even Jocko Willink says, if you're in a street fight, the best thing you can do is run. Mm-hmm. But that certainty of, I don't lack the skills to engage in certain situations, I think brings a lot of not just confidence, but safety within your own body because you know that you have the skills and the tools to deal with something. This could even be something that, maybe I'm even going to take the conversation to a slightly different avenue here, but I've done a lot of psychedelic therapy. That's kind of been my main avenue towards...
Guided or by yourself?
Guided.
Okay.
Guided. Awesome. And I've guided sessions as well.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. And one of the best things that I learned about myself is how I can be comfortable in discomfort. I had this one psilocybin journey where I felt the most anxious I've ever felt for 3 hours. And so imagine anxiety, and imagine anxiety turned up to 100, and you feel that for 3 hours. You can't escape it. It's like you're in the depths of it. You can choose to either be with it, or you can choose to try to run away from it. You can't run away from it. So I chose to be with it instead. And, the biggest lesson that I got from there is like, I can survive this. Whatever my mind throws at me, I can survive the worst feelings. It's not that I don't feel them. It's not that I am stoic about them, but effectively going through those experiences and coming out on the other side just shows me how strong I can be.
Yeah. and the more you do it, the stronger you become.
I don't recommend doing psychedelics.
I don't mean the psychedelics, but I mean, I mean like walking through it. And I think that's also like identifying it is like a big thing. I find like taking time to identifying like what it is in you, whether it's anxiety, what the stress is, like boiling it down to its like essence and saying, okay, well, now I'm going to build a program to address that. And that can be like a big game changer in terms of how you move forward. So I think, like an example, like I have high anxiety and I deal with it by creating chaos. And then the chaos creates the noise that I don't have to deal with the anxiety. But it can also lead to a perfect storm when all the chaos that I create piques my anxiety and then like it's all bets are off.
Mm-hmm.
And like a simple process of saying, well, what do I believe is true? I believe that I'm an imposter. I shouldn't be here. Like this is, I don't deserve to have this opportunity. How much out of 10 do I believe that's true? 9 out of 10. Like that's just how I feel. And the next one, okay, give 5 points to validate that statement, like that you're an imposter. Like, and then you sit there like really trying to find reasons why that's true. And then you have to go create 5 to the opposite, to the counter of that feeling. And you write them down. And it's like, right now, how much out of 10 do you believe that's true? And suddenly the number really drops because it becomes very easy to disprove that feeling or that voice in your head. And most of the time it's just your own voice. It's not what people are saying, it's what you're saying. Like, well, I believe I'm an imposter. And why do you believe that's true? I don't know. Like, why do I feel that that's true? Well, I got here because I got lucky. I was in the right place at the right time or blah, blah, blah. And then you get to the point where it's like, well, I still produced really well in the role, even though I got lucky. I've still built a massive network. I've been promoted multiple times. I've won multiple awards on this. Okay, I definitely should deserve to be here. Like, I think that's just like finding a program for dealing with whatever is bothering you is like such a good way once you're identifying it. Spending time identifying it is like a critical thing to do.
100%. I've never done that exercise, but I should. That's a really amazing way to tackle it.
I use it all the time now it's not even always written. Sometimes I'll just do it in my mind.
Yeah.
And something else that I highly recommend is getting feedback from people about yourself, like doing a questionnaire. Like, it's like a rating questionnaire, and you send it out to friends and people that hate you, that you think hate you, and whatever. And what came back was a lot of reinforcement of what I kind of knew to be true, but I didn't acknowledge. So always the first answer that everyone says, like, what is Stephen's most like, so what is your most, your best attribute? And then everyone always says my empathy. And I kind of knew it, but when people that love you tell you that face to face, you think it's like something that they should tell you, right? Like when you say good things about me, you should, because we're friends or because you're my mom or whatever it is. You have a reason. But once you do that feedback and like 20 people kind of saying a similar thing, eventually you say like, well, maybe I should just listen to this. Like, this is the truth. Mm-hmm. And I should not tell myself the same thing, because you try to spend a lot of time inside your mind actually disproving what people are saying that is good about you. So I really highly recommend that.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that.
Yeah. So what are you, just sort of wrapping up, what are you kind of working on now? Like, what are big projects for you or big interests, and where to for the next couple of years?
Right now, the projects that I'm looking into are definitely around self-development, mental health, this sort of thing that we've been talking about. Much like you with the podcast, ideally like trying to create a platform where I can talk about this type of stuff. And effectively, because I am an entrepreneur at heart, I do believe that I want to create a way that it can bring energy towards myself, but it also can bring energy towards others, right? And that energy is also in the form of money. So I need to find a way to monetize and create a business. The good thing is that I have the agency that's a good cash flow business on the side. And that allows me to like, okay, let me explore these avenues. I could do this for a year or two before I need to monetize it. And I still have that. So effectively, I'm looking into that. I'm being very careful with saying exactly what I'm going to do, because I kind of want to build in silence and then come out with something already ready,
Mm.
rather than just saying like, yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to become a coach or something like that. And then the problem with that is the validators. So we as humans, we have the network of validators. So when you say something like that and you spread it towards a lot, it kind of, you remove energy from that goal, because now you're just spreading that energy across, multiple people, multiple validators. And that makes it really hard, because a lot of people that you tell your goals about are not really the same people that are going to keep you accountable. So I'd rather, let me really put that pressure, healthy pressure on myself to find this. But it's definitely going to go towards those areas.
And so do you have people that you do consider ones that hold you accountable, that do sort of, or is it always on you?
I do. So I hired 2 coaches now that I'm working with for different aspects of my life. And I did share what I'm planning on doing with another friend of mine. So yeah, I do have people that will keep me accountable, but largely it's myself.
Mm.
I'm telling you this, so if you feel like the next time we speak, you can ask me like, "Hey, man,
it's gonna be like the first thing I ask, like, how's it going?"
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, I wish you luck, and thanks for coming and spending time with me today. It's been awesome to chat to you, and
thank you for the invite.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thanks.
I agree. Awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers.